I know that you are a huge, huge, huge anime fan. I believe the first time I saw you, you were wearing like a Naruto Halloween costume. I've never seen Naruto,
I
but I
wore
am a.
3 Naruto costumes over that whole weekend.
Oh, were there? That's
Yeah.
awesome. But yeah, I would love to hear about that. Like how anime, why anime, what do you love about anime? And I'm curious. And I'm guessing it does, but like, what do you find within anime as like a tool or a, I'll say like a map or guide within shadow work even?
Hmm. Cool. So let's see. I was into it as a kid, like
Mhm.
Toonami would come on and I'd watch Dragon Ball Z and like Goku turned Super Saiyan and I shit my pants and it was this
Yeah,
huge deal.
it's still the greatest moment on TV ever. I'm pretty convinced.
Yeah, it's the greatest moment in anime pretty much ever, except I did try to rewatch it again and it's
Mhm.
unwatchable. It is so much powering up and
Yeah,
screaming for like 4 episodes straight that I was like, I can't
yeah.
do this. Like,
I rewatched recently all of Dragon Ball Z. I cut out all of the filler episodes, and then
amazing.
I'm almost finished with Dragon Ball Super, which I have to finish soon because they're going to take it off of Hulu soon.
Mm.
But I was watching the same thing where it's like Frieza's like, yeah, there's 5 minutes left of the planet, and you're like, 15 episodes later, the planet is still not destroyed. So I don't know what kind of time I think they're using, but it's not super accurate. But yeah, I definitely felt the same way. There's just like you can tell how much they are just stretching these episodes out longer and longer. But yeah, I definitely will never forget where I was when Goku turned Super Saiyan, and
Oh,
yeah,
same.
that Frieza saga is just it's a at that point it's a perfect show,
Yeah,
minus
it
the
is.
overly long episodes.
So yeah, I got into that when I was a kid, and I loved anime
Mhm.
and all that sort of stuff. But also, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, I wasn't really allowed to watch a lot of stuff like that,
Yeah.
so I had to kind of sneak around. But I didn't really get super into it until I was in my 20s, and because I had pushed myself for so long to against my own demons, I've been fighting against them for so long that I had my first mental breakdown. I think at maybe 22,
Mhm.
and it was when my ability to push just kind of broke. I was like, I can't push anymore. I can't do it. And then my mind just kind of collapsed in on it itself. And I used to go out and party every day. I used to go out and do really crazy things and had this really active lifestyle. And I just found that I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to. And so I was like, well, what do I want to do instead? And I thought back to my old high school friend Trevor, and I was like, he got so much out of nerd shit. And I was always kind of jealous of that. I always kind of wanted something like that. So let me get into anime. And so I started watching Naruto, and I got into cartooning for a little bit. I didn't stick with it,
Mhm.
but I did get into it for a little bit. And I just fell in love with the characters. So Kakashi's my favorite anime character. If you guys don't know him, he's a fucking G.
Is
Kakashi
that from
Hattori.
Naruto?
Yes,
Okay,
he's Naruto's first teacher.
got it. Okay,
And he was the guy I was dressed as the first night of the party.
okay, got it.
Yeah, he's my favorite anime character. He's amazing.
What are
And
what
so I
are some of the
really,
qualities you liked about him?
well, he's got a really interesting kind of parallel to my life in that
Hmm.
his dad killed himself when he was a kid. And that was a defining characteristic for him. It turned him against the
Hmm.
world, turned him against people, kind of very similar to me. And it was through a series of events and people taking notice of him and caring that helped him steer away from this kind of nihilistic, self-destructive path that could have turned him into a villain.
Hmm.
And I just like resonate with that because I was
Yeah.
because he was also a really smart, gifted kid, and so was I. And bad shit happened to him, so he got went down a dark path, exactly like me. But then when you meet him, you don't know any of that stuff happened. He's just this calm, cool, collected, really good leader who's great at teaching, doesn't take any shit. And then once you actually see him fight, you see that he's just cold as hell and he's just going
Yeah.
to take out anybody. So
Yeah.
this contrast of like cool and stylish and fun and friendly and all that sort of stuff mixed with absolutely not bloodthirsty, but just like because he's not vicious, he's just like he's cold and they'll get it done. And I really
Yeah.
admired that duality in him. And so
Yeah.
I got really into the show, but it was actually the one of the first main villains of the series that had the biggest impact on me. And it was this guy Pain, who's my favorite villain of anything ever. And he gives this monologue to Naruto after he destroys his entire village that I had to rethink my whole life after I heard the monologue. So I was like, this is wild. Because he's basically talking about So his village was destroyed by Naruto's village. And so he comes back to destroy the village that destroyed his village. And then Naruto's like, oh, I'm going to get revenge on you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, that's what I said. So you destroyed my people, so now I'm here to destroy you. And then if you destroy me for destroying you, I'm just going to come back and destroy you again. So we're going to be in this never-ending conflict. And you don't have a way out of the conflict, but I do. I can become so big and so scary and so terrifying that no one will fight again just because they're afraid of me. And it made the main character Naruto really have to search his soul and be like, because in the beginning he didn't have an answer. He was like, I don't know what to say about that because you're right, and I got nowhere to go from there. And so he had to search his soul and figure out a response to that as I was, because it happened, the resolution happens like 6 episodes later. And so I was searching my soul for a resolution to that. And I was like, oh my God, it had so much come into focus for me and made me realize that, like, in our life, the fragmentation of the political sides and the constant, like, you did this to us. And it's like, oh, but you did this to us. And like, you're terrible in this way. Oh, but you're also terrible in that way. That it's a never ending cycle that will only get worse and worse and worse as time goes by. And there has to be a mediating force to stop that cycle of running out of control. And then when I realized, or I thought about it more, and I realized that shadow integration is that force that can come in and create harmony out of the chaos. And it gave so much more meaning to my work. It allowed me to discuss social issues in a more complex and relative way. It allowed me to talk about politics without talking about politics. I would actually just discuss the fundamental psychological forces behind certain political ideas. So, because if you attack the political idea, people get all defensive and they're like, oh, I got to defend my idea. But if you take it a deeper level and talk about the problems with the psychology that creates the belief, people can see that in themselves. They'll set that right, and the political belief will go away on its own. So that ended up being a big intention for me, especially because I was teaching shadow integration during the Trump election and presidency, which was everybody just getting more and more angry and more violent and just fracturing their minds off. And just, I hated what I was seeing happen to the world. And so it gave me a real sense of purpose and context to be like, all right, I may not have the thing, but I have a thing that if I go hard enough on this, and if I get enough people to adopt this kind of mentality, I think I might at least be able to take us in some positive steps.